All right, so for the record, this is a public meeting on an application by Texas LNG Brownsville LLC. It's for proposed air quality permit number 139561. This is the formal comment period for tonight's public meeting. This is your opportunity to submit comments on the record that you want TCEQ staff or TCEQ commissioners to consider before making any final decisions on this application. As a reminder, as you're providing your comments tonight, you will not get a response from anyone sitting up front. Instead, the comments you provide us tonight will be combined with all the written comments that have been received on this application, and will be responded to in one written document called the Executive Director's Response to Comments. As another reminder, tonight is not the end of the comment period. The comment period ends October 24th. So if you leave here tonight feeling like you forgot to say something or you didn't get a chance to say something, you'll still have time even after tonight to get things into us. You'll just have to mail it into the agency or submit them online. I've got about 30 folks who signed up to give comments tonight. I'm going to call you up in the order in which you signed in. When you hear me call your name, please come up to the microphone, state your name for the record, and go ahead and provide your comments. Since I have so many people sign up to give comments, I'm going to initially ask you to limit yourself to 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, after somebody's asking for one, after 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you to please take a break and let someone else come up and have a chance. And after everyone else has had a turn, if you feel like you still have something else that you want to add, you can come back up and have as much time as you need. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. First up is Diane Teeter.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Diane Teeter. I'm a resident of Laguna Vista, and I am a few miles within the Texas LNG proposed plant. I'd like to thank TCEQ for having this public meeting, as well as Representative Oliveira for calling it. Thank you for the opportunity to explore your TCEQ website. In review of such website, in the oil and gas compliance info on air quality standard permit for oil and gas handling production facilities, it states that one of your missions is to protect the public health and welfare. TCEQ is the steward or the guardian of our air quality, just as we are the guardian of the Laguna Madre. We need your stewardship now. We need your protection now as we are being barraged by LNG facilities, and the first one to be Texas LNG. We live in a unique area of Texas. The Laguna Madre is one of the last green fields without large-scale heavy industrial petrochemical plants. And we are talking about not just one, but 3 who have filed with FERC, 2 who have filed air quality permits for air. We therefore ask that the cumulative impact of all of the LNG plants proposed and upcoming be considered for air quality, and that none of them stand alone. At present, 70% of the seagrasses are here in the Texas area of the Laguna Madre seashore area. In the past, there were 80%. It keeps on going down year by year. In 1999, the Texas Seagrass Monitoring Plan was devised to detect changes in seagrass ecosystem prior to seagrass mortality. We would like to ask that you consider the seagrasses just as an example of our air quality, because when we talk about air quality, we also talk about water quality. One of the pollutants or contaminants that are planned by Texas LNG and the other LNG refineries, export terminals, are going to be sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide combines with water and air to produce sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is a main component of acid rain, which is going to cause the degradation and deforestation of our area. which will destroy and degrade our economics, built on tourism, ecotourism, shrimping, recreation, and other industries which we have been hard to establish. I ask that, since Texas LNG has done a cost-benefit analysis on the SCR and various catalytic control, that cost-benefit analysis also be obtained for this area as far as what pollution will cost our industry based on ecotourism, tourism, recreational fishing, and commercial fishing. We are having continued fragmentation, haphazard development, pollution from a barrage of natural gas companies in our area. We ask that you consider the plight of our health and our economic welfare of our residents and our future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Rick Teeter. Rick Teeter. Mr. Teeter will be followed by Dolly Lucio Sevier.
My name is, my name is Rick Teeter. I live in Laguna Vista. And my question is, where is this going to be happening? We're down here in Brownsville meeting this evening, and we're about 20 miles away from where these proposed plants are going to be. So, where they're actually going to be is at Laguna Vista, Port Isabel, and South Padre Island. And these are vacation destinations. These are retirement communities. So the one location that's going to be affected the most is that area out there, Laguna Vista, Port Isabel, and South Padre Island. But as the man from Texas LNG told us, the Brownsville Navigation District was set up in 1929, and we, the residents of Laguna Vista, Port Isabel, and South Padre Island, are not included in the Brownsville Navigation District. We do not have a voice in whatever it is that LNG wants to force on us. That's up to y'all. Y'all need to help us in that respect. So the one location is here. The one location is here at South Padre Island, Port Isabel, and Laguna Vista. Actually, that's only 1%. 1% of the population of Cameron County. So the politicians, everybody around here can say, oh, well, 99% of the people want it. It's got to be good. Don't worry about that 1%. Well, I liken that 1% to the indigenous peoples that we read about in the Amazon. They're trying to save their ecosystem. They're trying to save their livelihoods. So if we look at the map here, and it shows that we're going to have in Texas LNG, we're going to be about 3 miles from Laguna Vista. We're going to be about 2.5 miles from Port Isabel. We're going to be about 5 miles from South Padre Island. This is the way the wind blows. It's right into us, people. It's all coming at us. It's not bothering Brownsville down here. You're 20 miles away, and you're south. You're down below. The wind doesn't blow it into you. So it's kind of a misnomer to say that it's the Brownsville Navigation District. It's not. But we get 100% of all this pollution that the LNGs are going to force on us, not just from Texas. No, but there's 2 others coming online that are threatening to come online. And we're going to get all the pollution. Brownsville down here, no, they're not. So LNG poisons and pollutes us. And we're the ones that live here. We're the ones that are going to be affected. And we don't even get a say. We can't even vote for the port commissioners, the ones in Brownsville Navigation District. I tried to run this year. That's when I found out, oh, wait, Laguna Vista, Port Isabel, South Padre Island. No, they're not in the Brownsville Navigation District. Y'all don't even get a say. We can pollute you all we want to, but you don't get a say in what we're going to do. That, to me, sounds vaguely familiar. Taxation without representation. How about pollution? How about killing without representation? We don't even have a say-so. Pollution, it's all going to come raining down on us. And it's damaging the residents' health. Not only is it damaging the residents' health, it's destroying the Laguna Madre ecosystem. And the Laguna Madre ecosystem supports all the businesses that we have going on out in the Laguna Madre out there. The ecotourism, the birding, the fishing, all those are out there. All those are tax-paying entities. They have been. South Padre Island has the largest percentage of taxes that are paid due to people wanting to live out there on South Padre Island. Okay? That's not going to continue if the LNGs come in. We also have the wildlife corridor. The wildlife corridor is put together to have a contiguous section that the animals could traverse back and forth between Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge and Mexico and across the river. Well, we can see that this green section here and this green section down below is all part of the wildlife refuge. This white section used to be leased out to the Federal Wildlife Refuge there. They took it away about 5 years ago when the LNG said they wanted to come in. They did not renew their lease. They did it in a backroom deal. And they said, okay, it's not going to bother the animals wanting to go back and forth through here. How can it not? Look at this area, that whole strip, 1, 2, 3. We have LNG plants that are planning to go in there. And it's going to bisect right through the refuge. There's no way those animals can continue there. So let's not pave over paradise to put in a parking lot for an LNG plant. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Dolly Lucio Sevier or Sever. Mike Altamirano. Mike will be followed by Tony Garcia.
Hello. I brought my poster up here as maybe a visual aid for myself. And my name is Mike Altamirano. I am from Brownsville. And the names of people who have been up here and spoken are familiar because I, as many of the people who are accompanying me in favor of LNG here, have taken the time to listen to both sides of the argument and or points of view. And it's only after a long understanding of the minuscule and calculated risks that having the LNG plants here would bring that we support. I personally support. If you research the large accomplishments and or projects, whether it be the dredging of the Port of Brownsville or the genesis, the beginning of the airport here in Brownsville. I live half a mile from the airport. There's always been a strong opposition. Fear is a big motivator. And of course, there's always tiny or risks, varying degrees on projects like these. But the reasons I stand for it is because I'm a lifelong resident of this community. I am a veteran. We'd like to hold accountable the LNG plant administrators that say that they would be veteran friendly when it comes to jobs. I heart SPI tags here tonight. I think that we have more things in common than differences with the people that oppose our viewpoints. But we must not let fear stand in the way of progress. If there's ever a region of the United States that needs progress and or an economic boost, that would be us. And we'd like to hold LNG accountable for the agreements or the promise of fair and partial favoring of our local veterans. And I really thank you for having us here to express this in this forum. And I think that the ability to express ourselves has been widespread. Not long ago, I was in the Point Isabel School District where they had an opportunity to, where everyone of opposing viewpoints had an opportunity to talk on a different topic, well, on a different permit, same topic. And there was a small victory for the opposition there. And I admire the passion and the love for the things that are being protected here, or the wish to protect that we all hold dear. but we mustn't allow, again, fear to stand in the way of progress. Usually, fear and its possible consequences of progress is giving the government more money, throwing money to the problem, and or allowing government to get bigger. But in this case, the things that stand to be gained are for our generation, for future generations in economic development. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next up is Tony Garcia. Tony Garcia will be followed by Walter Birdwell, who will be followed by Glenn Boward.
My name's Tony Garcia, and I welcome all you gentlemen, ladies, to Brownsville. I come at it from a different perspective. I respect these people's point of view. I hope they would respect ours. As you can see, I am a veteran. We have some Vietnam veterans here, and I want to tell you a story of what happened to us. When we came back from Southeast Asia, when we came to Brownsville, Brownsville was totally a different town. We failed to take opportunities to grow and prosper. As a result of that, most of us that were coming back from Vietnam or all over the world, we learned, or they taught us, to use equipment that cost them millions of dollars. And we were proficient at it. We were well trained, we were well disciplined, and we were eager to get our job done. I came back to Brownsville in 1971 with that attitude. I was eager, I wanted to make a difference in my community, but there was one thing lacking. There was no jobs. And it wasn't like it is today, that we had a lot of Walmarts, a lot of McDonald's, Whataburgers. Nothing like that was in Brownsville. And if we fail to take this opportunity and bring in these people with LNG, we're going to be hurting some of our veterans that are coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan, and worldwide. These younger veterans, they're highly trained, they're highly motivated, and they're very computer savvy. The other thing I wanted to mention, I have two sons. They both live in San Antonio. One graduated out of A&M with an electrical engineering degree. The other, my other son, has got a master's degree from Kingsville before it was part of the A&M system. And I really thought when they graduated that they would have a bright future here in Brownsville. They thought along the same lines. Unfortunately, there was no jobs available. Wherever they applied, they told both of my sons that they were overqualified. They offered them jobs at J.C. Penney. What's a guy with a master's degree going to be doing selling clothes at J.C. Penney? He went to San Antonio. He's got a great job over there. My youngest son with an electrical engineering degree, he's got a great job over there. Brownsville lost a lot of brain power, and we continue to lose brain power because there's no industry down here. We have the opportunity to bring industry, and I'm an environmentalist too. I like to fish, I love to hunt, and I want to take care of the animals. But what I have learned in my years of fishing and hunting, animals are smart. They're a lot smarter than most people give them credit. We have to look beyond that. Animals are important, but so are our kids. We want them to graduate from college, and we want them to work here in Brownsville. But they're not going to work at McDonald's or at Whataburger, Walmart. So I ask you to consider this very serious. I wish my sons were here in Brownsville, but there's nothing here in Brownsville for them. Like they said, they were overqualified for their jobs that were available in Brownsville. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Walter Birdwell, to be followed by Glenn Boward.
Well, that would be me, Walter Birdwell. I say I get to follow a couple of veterans. I'm a veteran, U.S. Army 64, 67. It's not really germane to anything here that I can see, but if it is, oh well. I thank you all for coming out here and giving us a chance to talk. I live in Laguna Vista, Old Town, and if I look out toward the ship channel, if I could see that far, I'd be looking right over the Point Isabel school complex and right at the LNG plants. And I would take all information LNG proponents provide you with a ton and a half of salt rather than a grain, because that little picture put up at the beginning of the meeting was wide angled. The tanks and the trains look like Monopoly buildings in the little game. Wide angle lens at the top, they get flattened out. They're actually 150 feet or so tall, most of them. The prevailing wind is almost always from the southeast blowing northwest, or right over Port Isabel, the school, Laguna Heights, Laguna Vista, and on out. And look around at some people in here. Rio Grande Valley has a lot of health issues. If we have LNG plants, we're going to have more of them. People migrate down here from Houston. That was where my whole working career was. And I would hope the Environmental Quality Committee would do a better job than they did in Houston and Magnolia Gardens. All kinds of trouble with monitors, but things evolve, and I'm confident you all will do better here. It's significant that the people that are affected, the local governing bodies, Laguna Vista, the Point Isabel School District, Port Isabel, South Padre Island, every one of them on the Gulf, Laguna Madre, has rejected LNG. And I know a lot of people in the current Texas administration believe in local control and limited government, so that's something to consider. We have a lot of in-migration now because people want to retire here. If we build those plants, we might have out-migration to Houston so people can go to the MD Anderson Cancer Center. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next up is Glenn Boward, and then John Young and Joseph Cantu.
My name is Glenn Bauer, and I've been a resident of the Valley now for 39 years. I stand before you to urge the TCEQ to deny this air pollution permit. If permitted, the Texas LNG and other LNG facilities will become the largest air polluters in Cameron County. Based on LNG reports, this permit will allow the dumping of 622 tons of volatile organic compounds per year into the very air we breathe. There is no safe level for volatile organic compounds. If TCEQ issues this permit, the Commission will, in my opinion, become a party to increasing nitrogen oxides by 36% into the Cameron County environment and to the environments further downwind. This permit will sacrifice our air quality and environment while enriching the LNG export companies' profits. This permit will enable the LNG companies to pursue the ultimate destruction of our beautiful South Texas environment. One has to ask if this air pollution permit is worth sacrificing the following: sacrificing the public health, sacrificing the loss of revenue from tourism and related businesses, sacrificing the loss of property values of South Padre Island, Port Isabel, and Brownsville, sacrificing the disruption of the wildlife corridor with proposed LNG plants in the middle of wildlife refuges, sacrificing the loss and disruption of ecological and economical valuable wetlands, sacrificing the disruption of the shrimping industry, sacrificing our grandchildren's enjoyment of the South Texas coastline. I urge you not to make these sacrifices by denying the air pollution permits for Texas LNG. Thank you.
Thank you. John Young, followed by Joseph Cantu. Go ahead.
Hello again. We're being encircled by an interlocking web of petrochemical operations heading our way. You want to tap into TransCanada, partnered with Spectra's Valley Crossing pipeline being built for Mexico, 48-inch pipeline from Agua Dulce down to Brownsville, then under the Gulf waters down to Veracruz. We already have a 48-inch pipeline from Agua Dulce to Rio Grande City, feeding, they said, supplying Mexico with 20% of its needed natural gas because they don't have enough of their own. We have 2 pipelines in West Texas headed into Mexico. So if you add all 4 pipelines together, Texas will be providing Mexico with 80% of its unsupplied natural gas needs. We have oil trains headed our way. Centurion Condensate, Centurion Midstream Group is building at the port of Brownsville, and it intends, starting summer of 2017, to have 2 rail cars a day, 120 rail tanker cars full of condensate going from West Texas, from the Delaware Basin, through San Antonio, through Raymondville, Harlingen, San Benito, in front of Rancho Viejo, through Olmito, through part of Brownsville, out to the port. The port is building a new oil dock and repairing an old oil dock. Oil trains will come. We already have a number of oil trains with heating oil number 6. What other things are headed our way? We don't know. We're often the last to hear. LNG started heading our way in June 2012. We didn't hear about it until the middle of 2014. Regulations take time. You're bound by the regulations. You personally might look at the regulations and say these are inadequate, but this is what we're stuck with. It's going to take years to change these regulations. Research is barreling ahead. I mentioned ozone. The old requirement, or the old ceiling, was 75 parts per billion. That's now in the court because it's being fought. EPA wanted to lower it to 70 parts per billion. The medical people said, look at what we're finding. Epidemiological studies, research, the American Academy of Pediatrics, American College of Preventive Medicine, American Heart Association, American Lung Association, American Medical Association, American Public Health Association, American Thoracic Society, Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, Children's Environmental Health Network, National Association of County and City Health Officials, National Association for Medical Direction of Respiratory Care, Health Care Without Harm, and Trust for Americans' Health, all are calling for a 60 part per billion maximum. That's the standard in Europe. They say that we need maximum 60 parts per million to protect our health. And that's true. Some recent research indicates that the association between ozone and mortality began at 35 parts per billion based on an annual daily exposure of 8 hours. Maybe 60 parts per billion is too much. And the companies say that because we get these permits, even with stipulations, and if you can go ahead, if you do this and if you do that, that our health is protected. And there are two things that I would ask. One is that you clarify all that we're certifying is that they're not exceeding the threshold that are allowed according to the rules, but we cannot vouch for the fact that this is not going to harm your health.
Mr. Young, you've gone over 5 minutes. I'll give you 10 seconds to wrap up, and then you can go back up once everybody else has had a chance. Okay, thank you. Next up is Joseph Cantu. Joseph Cantu. Madeline Sandifer, I think this is. Madeline? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Madeline Sandifer. I live in Laguna Vista, which is going to be about within 5 miles of the proposed project. I'm extremely concerned about the...
Madeline, can you get a little bit closer to the microphone, please?
Yes. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm extremely concerned about the various pollutants that would be allowed if an air quality permit should be granted for this project. This evening, I wish to read into the record the fact that the 3 cities which will be most directly affected by these pollutants because of their proximity to the project, namely South Padre Island, Port Isabel, and Laguna Vista, have all passed a resolution opposing this project, and a copy of these resolutions has been made available to Mr. Joel Lunsford with your agency. These resolutions represent the will of the people who would reside in the areas that, due to prevailing southeasterly winds, would affect all of us. I feel it's important that the TCEQ take into consideration this important information when they consider whether to grant a permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jim Chapman. Jim will be followed by Jorge Mata and Marianne Poithas.
Good evening. My name is Jim Chapman. I'm the chair of the Sierra Club here in the Lower Rio Grande Valley. We're concerned about emissions, and I guess that's what we're all here talking about. But I'm only going to talk for a few minutes about one of the emissions, and that's the PM 2.5s, the small particulates, less than 2.5 microns. Those are the ones that are the most problems for people with asthma, emphysema, or other respiratory problems because they're so small they get into the deepest parts of the lungs. Off your website, I got a list of the highest PM 2.5 levels in Texas from all 49 of your air monitoring stations in 2016. The highest level in the state was in the valley at the Mission monitoring station. The second highest level in the state was at Isla Blanca, the tip of South Padre Island. Both those levels were above 35 parts per million, which is the level that's considered hazardous to people, to special populations, meaning people with asthma and other respiratory problems. Several people have spoken that you need to be looking not just at the Texas LNG emissions, but that all 3 of the proposed LNG companies' emissions, you have to look at those cumulatively to really assess their impact. Well, we've done a little bit of that work for you, And we've taken the total that's in the resource reports from Texas LNG, Rio Grande LNG, and Inova LNG, and the total emissions for PM 2.5s is 848 tons, which is a big number. 848 tons represents a 14% increase in the total PM 2.5 emissions in this area. If you take, going back to your highest levels in the state, if you increase the levels here by 14%, instead of having 2 days where the PM 2.5 levels are in the hazardous range, we'll have 10 days of greater than 35 parts per million, which is hazardous to special groups. So that's 10 days. Those 10 days will be higher than any level in any day in Houston or in Dallas. That'll be 10 days when we will see an increase in people with asthma and other respiratory problems going to doctors, to clinics, to emergency rooms. That will be a very real impact, and it's not an impact that we feel is acceptable. And we urge you to deny the air pollution permits. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jorge Mata. Marianne Poitras. Marianne? Rebecca Hinojosa?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Hinojosa. I would say that TCEQ should stand with the communities that have all passed official city resolutions opposing LNG. Those communities include South Padre Island, Laguna Vista, Long Island Village, and a community group in Laguna Heights. Laguna Heights doesn't have a city council, or else they would consider passing a resolution as a city, as well as Port Isabel. So those are all the communities that are downwind, and they have formally said that they do not want LNG. They've also filed FERC applications and motions to intervene on all 4 LNG FERC applications. We're talking about the air pollution in Brownsville and the air pollution that will impact the Laguna Madre communities, but are we also considering the communities at the other end of the pipeline, communities that are currently experiencing hydraulic fracturing in the Eagle Ford Shale? There are volatile organic compounds that are being released from those hydraulic fracturing sites, high levels of benzene, toluene, xylene. Some of those counties may even be in non-attainment already. So we need to consider that these LNG facilities will highly likely increase to more hydraulic fracturing in these areas. So that's something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jim Barton. Mr. Barton will be followed by Leila Burnell Korab and Stephanie Herbeck.
Yes, my name is Jim Barton. I'm from Brownsville. Now, I don't expect you, Mr. Glessner, to respond to this. I know that's not the role of this public comment, but I'm not particularly reassured to think that we'll have leak detection explored every 3 months. It would seem to me, as a non-scientist, that within 90 days we could develop a very serious issue, and so that's not particularly reassuring. But my overall view of this is that I think we need to think long range in terms of what we really have here in Cameron County, Port Isabel, South Padre Island, what our primary assets, what our primary physical and geographical assets are. And for many of us, the 8-mile strip of natural beach, Boca Chica, the 10-mile barrier island, South Padre Island, are our primary assets. When we think in terms of our future, it's generally viewed that ecotourism, birding, and of course tourism to a natural site that is diminishing in our country daily, those will be the things that will be the most important to us down the line. Now, with all due respect, I view the LNG industry as the demand for LNG plants is actually diminishing. And what I don't want to see is 30 years from now, a 20-mile pile of 500-foot highly contaminated metal junk. And that's what I foresee. I probably won't be around to see it. But in my view of what I've seen of the market and the push for alternate fuels sources or energy sources, that's what I see. Now, for many in Brownsville, they've been told that natural gas is a very clean burning fuel. And so I don't think they're really thinking in terms of what we're talking about here. They're seeing two burners with perhaps a very pristine blue flame, and that our grandmother would use to warm a tortilla, but that's not what an LNG plant is. It's a very complex, very energy intense plant that squeezes natural gas to 1/600th of its former volume. So just in terms of economic impact, if you can transport natural gas in one ship instead of 600 ships, that's where the savings comes in. But now to accomplish that takes a tremendous amount of energy and also releases a lot of pollutants into the air. We're talking about millions of gallons of hot effluent, and those will eventually filter down into one of the world's cleanest shallow water estuaries. We have also emitted helium, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, mercury, hydrocarbons, and of course other impurities. All of these a couple miles downwind from the world's most pristine, or at least our country's most pristine beaches. So what I want us to do is to think in terms of long term, what we want for Brownsville, Cameron County. Do we want a channel view? Do we want Houston? Do we want to look out on the water and see a brown haze? If you've ever been to Channel View, they have water just like we do, but you don't see anyone on the beach sunning themselves. You don't see anyone kayaking. You don't see anyone surfing. So do we want that kind of future for Brownsville, or do we want to maintain our pristine natural beauty of our 8-mile natural beach and our 10-mile barrier island?